Welcome back to the yard where faith and sports collide. And speaking of the yard and barely fitting in the yard is heavyweight boxer Trent Rawlins. Trent, thank you so much for joining us today, man. You look great, man. How big are you, man? Those muscles are out of control.
I weighed myself last week. I'm like 255.
Wow.
I like to fight between 235 and 240, but I've been injured, which we'll talk about later.
Yeah.
So I've just been, relaxing, lifting a little bit of weights and do a little bit of fitness work. So I put a little bit of muscle on.
Yeah, I say a little bit for sure, man. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be in the yard.
Oh, man, it's going to be great. Hey, we're going to get into boxing right away.
Sure.
Tell us how you got into boxing. I know that typically it's a sport that in Australia, I don't know how big it is. Yeah. And share with us your road to getting into boxing as a young man.
Sure. So I was a rugby player.
All right, okay.
And at the age of 18, we don't have a college system where you go from college to the pros. So at the age of 18, straight out of high school, I got a contract to go play for the South Sydney Rabbitohs.
Oh, wow.
And the South Sydney Rabbitohs is owned by Russell Crowe.
Oh, okay, sure.
You know, the Gladiator actor.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I got a contract, went from Melbourne to Sydney and played in the under-20s.
All right.
And then after one season, I didn't make the cut. You know, it's like football here where it's very fickle, so very fragile. So they said after one season, Trent, we don't need you anymore. So I didn't know what to do. Didn't know what I was going to do with myself. So I went back to Melbourne, and I wasn't very good at school, so I didn't have good grades to go to university. We call college university there. Okay. I didn't have the great grades to go to university, and I didn't know about the Lord. I didn't know there was a God that had plans to prosper me, not harm me, plans to give me hope in the future. I didn't know about that. So I went back to Melbourne, a fearful young boy, didn't know what to do with my life. I thought, oh my goodness, all I was good at was sport as a kid. And, what am I going to do now? My contract's over. I've got to go back to Melbourne. What am I going to do now? I felt like a failure. So that fear turned into anger. And in the meantime, I started working in a chip factory.
Okay.
Smith's Chips. It was like Lay's chips,
okay.
Lay's.
Okay.
Yeah. Started working in a chip factory there and met a guy called Mark. And this gentleman called Mark, he friendly guy. There was something different about this guy. He always had a smile on his face and just a nice guy, very helpful. Never used to curse like everyone else used to curse.
Yeah.
Never used to complain like everyone else used to complain. Something different about this guy. And one day we were working in the factory and he said to me, Trent, do you know Jesus?
Huh?
And I come from an Anglican Church of England home,
okay.
Religious like Catholicism.
Yeah.
So I said, yeah, sure, I know Jesus. That's God's son. That's the reason why we eat fish on Good Friday, because that was a tradition.
Okay.
We used to eat fish on Good Friday, Catholicism tradition.
Yeah.
So he goes, yeah, but that's also God in the flesh. And I said, what do you mean it's God in the flesh? He said, it's God in the flesh. So I said, why don't you come to church? And I said, yeah, I'd love to come to church. But in the meantime, getting back onto the boxing thing, I went back to Melbourne. I was planning to make a comeback in rugby league the next year. So I did some boxing for fitness.
Okay.
And the trainer said to me, you're a good athlete. You're young and you're angry, because I was angry at the time, because my dreams were taken away from me. Why don't you have a fight? So I had a fight and that's how I got into the amateur boxing.
Okay, wow.
I didn't look back.
Yeah. So you mentioned this guy, Mark.
So getting back onto that, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
So getting back into that, so Mark said, well, why don't you come to church? I said, well, I'd love to come to church. So I went to church with Mark, and I remember walking into church, and everyone was so friendly, everyone was so nice. And at the time, I was an angry young kid because my dreams got taken away from me, and it wasn't anger, it was fear that turned into anger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how to cope with things.
Sure.
So I didn't want to speak to anyone, I didn't want to talk to anyone. Everyone was so friendly and nice. And I remember Mark said, why don't you sit up the front with me? And so I sat up the front with Mark, and I remember people were talking in strange languages and, shalom, I was like, these people are crazy. So I said to Mark, you know what, I'm going to go sit up the back. You can be in the front. He's such a graceful, nice guy. He said, sure. He calls me Trenny. Sure, Trenny. You go up, you can go up the back. And every week I used to go back. Something kept drawing me back. And I used to hear the message of grace. How God, it doesn't matter what you've done in your life, God forgives you. God's got plans for you. God
So was
wants
this
to.
the first time you hearing these things
The
that
first time
God
I heard
had
these
planned
things.
for you, that He
Yeah.
loved you, that there was grace for you? And
Sure.
what did you think when you were hearing all of these
Well, I
things?
heard these things, and like I said, I didn't want to talk to anyone, and something just kept drawing me back. And I used to in worship, instead of raising my hands, I didn't want to be one of these crazy people that are raising their hands,
Yeah.
one of these uncool people. So I used to put my hands in my head like this,
Yeah.
and I used to pray to God. And I say, God, if you're out there, if you're real, Jesus, you know, save me, rescue me, redeem me, give me hope for my future.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. And through that process, then going to church, making a relationship with Mark, one of the things we talk about here, and it's a common theme, Trent, is that somebody has to open up their mouth. You know what I mean? As Christians, we need to be bold enough to invite people to church, to tell them Jesus loves them. We need to live in a way, just like Mark did, that's attractive, not call ourselves quote unquote Christians and live like everybody else. So here's a great example of a guy living for God.
Yes.
Right? And him living in a way that's attractive to you. But then beyond that, sometimes you got to open up your mouth and tell somebody about Jesus. So now this guy's doing that. Now you're in church and you're praying and pick up the story from there.
I remember one night, and I did not write down the time or the date, so I don't know. It was approximately around 12:30 in the morning, and I lived with my grandmother and mother at the time in a small house, in a 3-bedroom house. And I remember it was approximately around 12:30. It wasn't. Like I said, I didn't write down the date, the time. When people get saved, they write down the date, the time. That wasn't me. And I remember I went to sleep, and I went to sleep, and I heard Jesus. Jesus said to me, "Turn from your sins and turn to me." Suddenly, I got up and went, "Huh?"
So you had a feeling, or you heard a voice?
The voice.
Wow.
Jesus spoke to me. I got up, and I went, "Huh?" He said, "Trent, turn from your sins and turn to me." Suddenly, I got up. I started running around the house. Jesus saves. Jesus saves. Give your life to Jesus. Jesus saves.
Wow.
My grandmother's in the room behind me, and she's like, "Trent, are you okay?" My mother's in the room next to her in the back, and she's getting ready to call the mental health unit because she thought I lost my mind.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Wow. So I'd be scared too if it's 12:30 at night and you're running around the house screaming, Jesus saves.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah, I heard Jesus. Give your life to Jesus. Jesus saves. Yeah.
And so then you hear his voice. The next day, what happens in your life?
Next day, I just business as usual, but I felt saved.
Yeah. And so that was the moment then when you realized Jesus was real and that he saves. You give your life to him by acknowledging him, acknowledging that he's true, that he's real, and then now your life starts changing.
Yeah, and rewind that a little bit. I in that process, I got arrested at the time. Before that,
For what?
Making a threat towards somebody.
Okay.
I was an angry young kid at the time.
Yeah.
That anger is gone at the moment. But like I said, it was fear. Yeah. And I was arrested, and I got out of the police station, and I looked up to the skies, and I said, "God, I know you're real. You must be real. It's common sense.
Yeah.
But what God are you?
Huh.
Are you Jesus? Are you Hare Krishna? Are you Muhammad? Are you Buddha?"
Wow. Wow. So you knew there was a God, but you've heard from all these different religions.
That's
and
right. What God
so,
is it?
yeah, who
Well,
are
there
you?
must be a God. I said to God, I looked up to the sky. I said, look at the trees. Look at the way we're designed. I mean, something just didn't go bang. That's the most stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. Something just goes bang, and we're created this perfect. Come on. So I said to God, "God, you must be real. What God are you? Are you Jesus? Are you Muhammad? Are you Buddha? Are you Hare Krishna?" And, then God appeared to me that night. And I like I said, I don't have the exact date. I don't have the exact time. It was approximately 12:30 in the morning.
Wow, what a powerful
And I
story.
credit that to Acts 2:21. Whoever calls on the name of the Lord will be saved.
Amen.
And because I called out to God that day, I said, "God, what are you? Are you real? I know you're real, but what are you?" He came to me that night.
Wow.
And
maybe there's listeners right now who kind of on that same spot you were, where they believe in God.
Sure.
Like, I don't believe in atheists. In other words, I don't think anybody with a sane mind, Trent, that really has the capacity to think, I don't believe any of them don't believe in God. I believe that they may tell themselves that because they don't want to be accountable for their lives. They may tell themselves that because they don't want to live by God's commandments, by his rules. They want to be God, because just like you said, it's just not logical to think that out of nothing came something and out of chaos came order. It's just not logical. I often think, what if I took my kids love Legos, and I took all of their Lego pieces, right? And we bought it, and it has all the 250 pieces necessary to form that set, right? We have all the pieces in there. And then you took it and you shake it up, or let's just say you put it in something that agitated the pieces and moved them, and like a dryer, and you put it in there for 10 million years. Nobody would ever think, even though it's only 250 pieces, even though there's some movement and all the parts of there, nobody would ever think that it would come together to make the perfect thing that it was created to be. Sure. Nobody would think that. They think you're ridiculous. But yet somehow people believe, or they tell themselves, that we came from nothing, we exploded, out of chaos came order. It just doesn't make any sense.
That's an excuse. And Marcus, you've hit it on the head, man. You've hit that point right on the head. I mean, the Bible says, it's biblical. Even the demons believe and shudder. Yeah. It means everyone believes.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just an excuse. That doesn't suit my lifestyle. So that's garbage. I don't believe in that.
Yeah. So then how, having a Christian faith, fast forwarding to now, as a heavyweight boxer, as a guy, with dreams and aspirations to be heavyweight champion of the world, that's a crazy dark world. I know a little bit about boxing through you and through friends. How do you remain being the light? How do you remain keeping biblical standards when there's women chasing after you, there's money floating around, and in a dark environment? What keeps you solid, Trent?
The Lord. The Lord keeps me solid in everything. There was a time where I had 2 early losses in my career. I'm 10-2-1 right now, so building my way back up. And after the second loss, God said to me, the reason why you had that loss, Trent, is because you wanted to be heavyweight champion of the world more than anything. And that's what I did. I wanted to be heavyweight champion of the world. I would have done anything it takes to be heavyweight champion of the world. That consumed me. All I wanted to do was champion of the world. Matthew 6:33 says, seek first the kingdom and all its righteousness, and all things be added unto you. And I had to put God first and then put everything else beneath that, and put my wife, my mother, my family second. Boxing comes third.
Wow.
And ever since that, God's just blessed my career.
Wow. That's awesome. And I know you mentioned putting your wife first. I know one of the ways you do that, not only boxing, but serving your wife, working with her, right? With Rawlins Law, correct? Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we do personal injury. So my wife's an attorney.
Wait, you do personal injuries? Yeah, I bet you do.
Yeah. So we do personal injury. So car accidents, truck accidents, slip and falls, dog bites,
Punch to the face.
And I feel like punching some of the insurance adjusted to the face sometimes. But we do personal injury. So my wife is the attorney for Rawlins Law, and I do the case management side of things. So as well as my boxing career, I'm working on the side, helping my wife. So dealing with the insurance adjusters, and sometimes, don't worry, I feel like punching them in the face, but I can't do that.
Well, Trent, man, I can't tell you how much we enjoyed having you here in the yard. We're going to be following your career, and we look forward to having you again soon. Keep serving your wife, keep keeping your priorities straight, and keep living for the Lord, man. We love you, Trent, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me in the yard.
Yeah.
Thank you, brother.
Thank you, man. Love you, bro.
Bye.
Thanks again, you guys, for joining us in the yard, and a special thank you once again to heavyweight boxer Trent Rawlins. You guys stay tuned for next week, another great week in the yard.